started if you'd like.
For some reason, my unmute does not want to cooperate today. Good morning, everyone. It's always such a pleasure to see you all and to come together and do this really wonderful and important work that we have been charged with. So, really happy to see you all today. Welcome to our December meeting. This will be our final meeting of the year. Um, I'm really excited about that because I know what's coming next, which is our retreat in January, and it's something that I've definitely been looking forward to. And I will also just say, as I kind of reflected on coming together with you all today, um, I was thinking about how, what the end of the year kind of looks like for many folks. We sometimes spend more time with our families, we reflect on the year that's passed and look forward to the year ahead. And I also know that it can be a really difficult time for people, and it can be really heavy and challenging. And as I thought about that, I just really sat with some gratitude about the important work that we're doing and how um, I guess wonderful it is that we get to come together and literally change people's lives, save people's lives, and change the future for Oregonians. And I guess I just wanted to really express my gratitude and kind of set that as the stage for our meeting as we move into the end of the year and start looking forward to our retreat next year. So, I do want to remind you that while members of the public are welcome to observe, and they can definitely provide comment during the public comment period at the end of the meeting, discussion and voting is reserved for board members. So with that, I'll go ahead and hand it off to Lisa to start with roll call.
Oh, thanks, Carrie. Can we get to the roll call slide, please? Thank you. Okay, I will call your name. Let us know if you're here. April Roman, Adria Decker,
Here.
John McElveen,
Here.
Tammy Kane Suleiman,
Here.
Annalise Dolph,
Here.
Zebulai Payne.
I'm here. My video's not working, but I'm here.
Welcome. Okay, Nicholas Ocone.
Here.
Lori Trieger is absent today. Skylar Brocker Knapp, Joanne Linville,
Here.
Julia Hyduke, Carrie Brajati. We know you're
I'm here.
here. Rick Trelevin,
Here.
Fernando Peña,
Here.
Sheriff Matt Phillips,
Here.
Representative Hai Pham, Senator Lou Frederick,
Here.
Judge Alicia Edgeworth Kersey. Roll call is complete.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Lisa. So our objectives for today, as we get ready for our January planning retreat, we're going to take some time to look back on what we have accomplished during our last 2 years together. So today we'll learn more about the program monitoring work that CoMagine is doing. We'll hear from a tribal grantee and a grantee in the treatment category about the work that they are doing, and we'll get a better understanding of the needs and the work that local agencies who address SUD are doing. And then we'll also do some retreat planning. So today, our agenda, we have a packed agenda. I'm gonna try and do this so I'm not covering my mic. So as usual, we'll start with a DOJ update from Adria and a fiscal update from Tammy. Lisa and Dana will share some brief program highlights. Zach will share an update on the work of the Research, Evaluation, and Data Subcommittee, or the RED Committee, and then we'll dive into our presentations. Aaron Stack from CoMagine will take us through their program monitoring pilot and the results from that work. Whitney Yost, Behavioral Health Program Supervisor for the Cow Creek Band of Umpqua Tribe of Indians, will tell us about the work they have been doing to expand access to prevention, treatment, and recovery services in their community. Matt Owen from ORTC will give us an update on their efforts to expand treatment programs in Redmond, the Dalles, and Klamath Falls. And then we'll take a quick break and come back to a panel conversation with 3 representatives of local governments and public health to better understand their needs and what they are seeing on the ground. Then at the end, Zach will take us through some planning for the retreat, and we'll end with time for public comment and to review next steps. So definitely a packed agenda, but I am really excited to hear these presentations today. So before we move into the bulk of the agenda, we do want to make sure that we have a time to make sure we've called for conflict. So we're not planning on making any decisions today, but it is always a good idea to remind ourselves of our call for conflict. So please take a minute to review this, and if you have any conflicts, please let us know. All right, well, I can't see everybody's faces, but I'm gonna assume that that was enough time for people to chime in. Um, so I think with that, we can go ahead and move on to the next bit of business. And so our first item is to have our DOJ update. So I'll turn it over to Adria to give us an update on the DOJ's work, and then she can hand it off to Tammy for the fiscal updates. Adria?
Good morning, everyone. I don't have a whole lot of updates today. Probably the biggest one is that the judge in the Purdue bankruptcy proceedings approved the restructuring plan going forward. So that's the last essentially hurdle that we had to clear before the settlement moves forward. So that's all on track, and the best estimate I have of when we might see money from that is middle of next year. The group of 8 small manufacturers is also still moving forward. That might go a little quicker because it's a little bit less complex of a settlement. So we may see that in maybe late spring. Other than that, I don't have a lot of updates. We are working on the annual report. Subdivisions submitted their data to me. I'm still working on a few of them for late submissions. And we continue to investigate a couple of newer cases. And as soon as I have updates about those that I can share, I will do so.
Well, good morning, everyone. I'm going to go ahead and piggyback off of what Adria was talking about as far as payment schedules. So the way our payment schedule plan is right now, we aren't expecting any additional payments until March of 2026. So we can go to the next slide. There hasn't been any changes to these numbers because of that. But when the Purdue settlement and when the group of 8 settlements come in, the payment schedule will be updated, and then I'll be able to provide some additional information for the board about the impacts to this biennium's income and moving forward as well. So no changes to this slide from our last month, but the next slide, we do have a few updates. These are our allocations and our updated expenditures going forward. So we have seen increases in harm reduction, tribal prevention, recovery, and treatment this month. I actually just ran the numbers. I was out of the office, and so these are very fresh. And looks like we are now 33% expense to what the board has allocated. And I'd like to open the floor if there's any questions from the board members. Great. Well, I'll continue monitoring this, updating, like I said, payment schedules and expenditures going forward, and providing the board with the most updated information to help inform decisions that you're going to make for this important work in your allocations for the biennium AY27. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tammy. I just want to make sure before we move on to Lisa's update that there weren't any questions for Adria. All right. Well, then I think we can go ahead and move on to the program updates. Thanks.
Okay, I'm keeping this very brief because we have so many exciting presentations ahead, but I did want to let you know that we had our last local opioid settlement learning collaborative meeting of the year, November 13th, and that was all about how to look at data to drive your opioid settlement spending decision making. So we launched it with Annalise sharing how this board made spending decisions and all of the data that informed it. And then Liz McCarthy from OHA showed our overdose prevention dashboard and walked through how to use it. And I believe she's going to present this information in the future to the RED subcommittee as well. And then we had a panel of Clatsop, Tillamook, and Columbia counties, and they shared how they access data to help inform how their opioid settlement dollars are being spent. So we're hoping to resume the Learning Collaborative in February 2026. And as always, all are welcome. If you're interested, I can paste the information in the chat. And that's all from me.
All right. Any questions on that? All right. Well, next we can move on to the treatment allocation progress.
Hi, good morning, friends. So we've had some pretty good progress in regards to the OTP expansion. All of the sites are in some form of in progress, which is good news. Starting with our central site, that one has been executed agreement for quite some time, and the census for that program is around 90 individuals. The next site is Clackamas. This one is for Oregon City area with CODA. CODA has been diligently seeking a site location, and they have a potential new construction site that they are investigating. And in fact, they just submitted a proposed budget to us yesterday that we're going to go ahead and review and see how that lines up to our great options for that area. The second site in Clackamas, we have had quite a bit of a delay for the second site trying to find an awardee to enter into this area. So we did have some recent discussions with CRC in regards to Clackamas. They did bring up an area for potential future discussion in regards to maybe looking at Lynn County. That is not an area where the board had agreed to expand to, but CRC did indicate that that site has great potential and that they would be able to quickly execute a mobile van in that area. So just putting that out there of potential thought into maybe reevaluating a site location. When excuse me, Lynn County is an area of need. It would be a rural area as well. The next site is Multnomah, and this is New Season. They have two contracts that have, one has been executed and the other one is very close to being executed. It's currently at DOJ doing a final review of that contract, and that should be out the door for signature any day now. The next site is the Northeast Oregon. This is with ORTC, and we do have Matt with us today, so he'll be able to share a little bit more details in regards to their progress. Currently, they are searching for appropriate real estate for that location. So next slide, please. The other one is the second location for Eastern Oregon, and that also is with ORTC. They are searching for real estate. Mid-Gorge is ORTC as well. They have an executed agreement. They're currently moving into the recruitment workforce phase of their project, and the same with Klamath County. The next area is our coastal area number 1. Our awardee is Acadia, and they also known as CRC. And we recently have had some discussions with them. We really want a Tillamook site, but also due to some limited real estate options, possibly looking at Class Up area, which is also a coastal community, to see if that opens real estate options for those areas. Oops, if we can go back 1 second, that'd be great. Thank you. So what we did, because that area has had some barriers in regards to real estate, we wanted to move forward with drafting a statement of a work agreement with them. So they would have funds on hand to move quickly to secure real estate options. So that statement of work was submitted to our contracts unit on the 18th of November and is moving through the process. The next area is our Lane County Florence area. And this one is in progress. We do have a local community barrier in regards to the location being within 1,000 feet of a school. They're currently seeking a county waiver for that site. The last location is our Lane County Eastern, which would be for a mobile van, and that one is in progress with ORTC. They're doing research in regards to mobile vans and what a budget would look like for that area and for the van. And that is it for me.
All right, I'll give it 1 minute to see if anybody has any questions before passing it on to Zach for the Red Fernando.
Yeah, I'm wondering if some of these places where we're still struggling to find appropriate real estate, is that still as a part of that the DORC, the compact basically? Does anyone know?
I could chime in, Fernando. I know Dana's having some technical. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Dana.
Yeah, I was just going to say that the DORC really isn't the problem in those areas. It really is just locating real estate within the community that will work best. Yeah.
Right. To add to what Dana said, Fernando, the Tillamook site, but we discussed that a few meetings ago. That was related to that originally, in terms of some delays in contracting. But I think just Dana and I have really just been trying to push this through, like the example with the Tillamook site. Let's get a contract ready so that when they find something they can go. So it's been quite a journey, but I really do. I'm an optimist by nature, but I do feel like the next few months we're going to have a lot of very quick progress. So, and for the Mid Gorge, and Matt from Owen from ORTC can speak to this. There's obviously those challenges in urban and rural Oregon and finding workforce, especially medical workforce, which is a particularly acute problem. But I really do feel like we're kind of making we made a good foundation for this, and I really feel like in the coming months we're going to have some really good progress and moving this stuff forward. So I'm excited.
April?
Awesome. Thanks for the update.
Hey everyone, apologies for joining late. Similarly to Fernando's questions, and maybe I missed this as you were running down the list, but where we have some of the barriers or notes around county waivers needed or site seeking, I heard in the presentation we had on this a few months ago, or a couple of months ago, some offers of support from these board members. Do we know if you have been able to leverage the board membership here in order to help navigate some of those waiver processes and or even just some of the site seeking pieces? I know that I heard loud and clear from some folks here that they were willing participants in wanting to help usher those things along if there was an opportunity.
110%, April. Absolutely. Gloria is 100% behind it. Commissioner Trieger is incredibly supportive. She's done this before for some other sites in Lane County, reached out to the local county commissioners, the local community. They are actually, Lane County is getting ready to submit to the board, I think this week or next week. So that's what I was saying about, I think in the next few months, we will see some more real concrete progress, but absolutely take everybody up on their offers of support for sure.
One more thought on that, just because I know we have a new commissioner on the ADPC from Clatsop County. So maybe that's an opportunity to leverage that relationship and seeking a site there that folks are looking for. But Shira is the newest ADPC member, and she is the behavioral health director over at Clatsop County Behavioral Health, and would be a great resource for maybe us to pursue.
Yeah, absolutely. We're very familiar with Clatsop. Sheriff Phillips probably knows we do a lot of different work through our SOAR projects and other different projects involving Clatsop County Behavioral Health and Clatsop County Public Health. So absolutely.
So I just heard Sheriff Matt's going to help us find that spot. This is great. Awesome. Thanks.
I don't want to put words in it. I don't want to commit it, but
All right, thank you. I think the questions are great, and I do know real estate's a huge issue in our area, so it's not surprising to me, I guess, from where I'm sitting in the state, that these are challenges that are being they're trying to navigate. So really appreciate the input and the offers for help, and I trust that we'll get there eventually. Just have to keep working on it. So again, I want to try and keep us moving forward today, given how many items we have on our agenda. So if it's okay, I'd like to move us on to the Red Committee update. Zach?
Thank you, Carrie. Good morning, everyone. Just briefly wanted to run down what the Red Subcommittee did at their November meeting, continuing to work through both aspects of its objective. So first on the data system, we continued work on the data system framework by looking at some existing state dashboards and identifying what data on those dashboards was relevant to MOUD and how the board would like to look at that sort of data. So we'll continue working through that process in the new year and really work towards a recommendation potentially on how to spend some of that data system money to create sort of a unified, perhaps a landing page or dashboard. Still working through those details, but really making a lot of progress identifying what data sources are available, what the limitations are, and what the benefits of using those sources are. On the research and evaluation portfolio, the subcommittee discussed evaluation and agreed that it was important to prioritize evaluating board-funded projects, both to support decision-making in the future and to provide lessons learned that have broader impact, whether that be for other state government agencies or local governments. Just the learnings from that evaluation can really have a lot of impact. So with that in mind, we will be hearing about potential evaluation approach from Comagin in January and going from there. So expect to hear potentially some recommendations from the subcommittee early next year, perhaps on both of these topics. Any questions about the Red Subcommittee? All right, seeing none, I'll turn it back to Carrie.
My mute is not cooperating today. Unmute, unmute. Hey, thank you all so much for those updates. Really great information. Always happy to hear them. So our next item on the agenda is the program monitoring updates. So I will be turning it over to Aaron Stack from Comagin Health. They are our evaluation partners, and they will give us an update on the monitoring work and the baseline data they have gathered. So Aaron, go ahead and pass it on to you.
Great. Thanks, Carrie. And hi, everyone. Thanks for this opportunity to present on program monitoring updates and some baseline evaluation data. As mentioned, my name is Erin Stack, and I'm the Director of Research and Evaluation at Comagine Health. So for the presentation today, I will plan on providing an overview of the funded activities that Comagine has been tasked with completing related to the opioid settlement work in Oregon. Then I'll take us on a deeper dive into the grantee program monitoring progress updates and talk about next steps for this current fiscal year. And then finally, I'll share some baseline evaluation data that we pulled together to present to the RED subcommittee. So I'll share out some examples of those data as the final bit of this presentation. And then I hope to save a bit of time. I know this is a packed schedule, but at the end where you all can ask questions or share your reactions to the updates in the data. Okay, so with that, let's jump into an overview of funded activities on Comagine's plate. So Comagine Health has been tasked over the past several years with some opioid settlement related tasks that have been funded under OHA's administrative funding. So I just wanted to sort of highlight what these are. We have facilitated the local opioid settlement learning collaborative for the past 2 years. As Lisa mentioned, we just wrapped up the final session that occurred in November, which was great. And we're currently collecting survey responses from participants to get a better understanding of ways we can improve in the future, if it is funded in the future, and also information about what people want to continue to learn so that local decision makers have what they need to inform spending in their counties and in their regions. We also have been contributing to the board quality improvement follow-up assessment. That survey is currently active, so I'm going to do a little plug for a colleague who's leading that work. If you are a board member and you haven't completed that survey, please do. We're going to compile all your responses to present back to you in the next month or so. If you don't know what I'm talking about, also reach out. I can send you the link to that survey to complete if you are a board member again. We were also tasked with drafting an evaluation plan for OSPTR board-funded recovery grantees and a plan for board-funded treatment grantees, which we completed in June. We are currently leading program monitoring data collection and reporting across grantees. And then finally, we analyzed all payer, all claims data to highlight options for evaluating the impact of treatment grantees. And so for today's updates, I'm going to focus on these last two tasks, the program monitoring updates, and then some of the APAC baseline data. As mentioned, we are meeting to potentially present some of the evaluation plans for the treatment and recovery grantees to the RED subcommittee in the next couple of months. So I imagine this group will hear about those details in the future, in the near future. Okay, great. So we have been busy in the planning phases of the grantee program monitoring. So I'm excited to share with you some updates and some next steps. Before jumping into that, I just wanted to share a reminder that program monitoring is the process of collecting information and data from funded entities to ensure that they're meeting the requirements of the funding. It is really not to be a punitive process. It's supposed to be a process of ensuring that grantees are good stewards of the funding and then provide opportunities for improvements if necessary. Methods of data collection related to program monitoring are usually data that's collected directly from the grantee. So it's like grantee reporting about how they're spending the money, how accomplishments, challenges, if there's any shifts in their plans. That's sort of what program monitoring is, and collecting all that detailed information from the grantees. Products include response summaries and then which provides accountability for funding. The current program monitoring plan is to answer the following questions here on the slide. So how were funds used? How did funding build on existing capacity and effort? Who was engaged? What populations were reached? What happened because of funding? And how can the implementation be improved? Anything beyond these questions, so for example, measuring funding impacts at the client or the county or community level, would need to be part of a bigger impact evaluation of funding beyond the scope of what program monitoring is. So these are the questions that we can answer with what we'll collect from grantees. And here is our current plan for data collection across board funded categories. And these were developed in conversations with various OHA staff who are leading funding distribution to these different funding categories, and also in conversations with some of the grantees to make sure that we're doing our best not to add burden of reporting to these grantees who already report out a lot of this information. So just a quick rundown of things. So tribal grantees will be asked to complete a brief annual progress report, about 5 questions. Prevention grantees will have some items added to already existing surveys that's already in progress, and just a handful of items there as well. Treatment grantees will be asked to complete a grantee survey, and we will also conduct interviews with program leads starting in year 2. As Dina just presented, some of those treatment grantees are just getting started, so wanting to give them a little bit more time to get up and running before we did interviews. And then we'll also collect quarterly data on MOUD services provided in jails, which is connected to the TA that's being provided for jails related to MOUD at this time. The harm reduction grantee, Save Lives Oregon, is already working really closely with a contractor, so we didn't want to duplicate what was already being collected. They're already thinking quite detailed and intentionally about quality improvement and evaluation. So we will just request data summary from that contractor to combine with the other grantee information. And then recovery grantees will be asked to complete a grantee survey as well. And then we will be conducting interviews with program leads this fiscal year. And the plan for that is to happen in February or March. And then finally, the OHSU research project grantees will be asked to complete an annual summary report about their progress to date. So in terms of our deliverables and timeline, we'll be submitting an annual report to OHA at the end of each fiscal year. Our plan for each year is to finalize plans and data collection tools in November and December, and then we'll complete all data collection across funding categories by April. And we'll send a draft of the report to the OHA staff leading each of the funding categories that we've been working with in May, and then have a final report that can go out more broadly, including everyone here on the board, by the end of the fiscal year, so that by that June 30th date. So we are here in the process for this fiscal year. We've been meeting with OHA staff that oversee funding. We've been asking what information to collect, how to collect it. As I mentioned, we've been meeting with some grantees to make sure that what we're doing is not adding more burden to them, but it is a process where we're collecting information that's helping them as well. And then also all the logistical pieces that come with data collection, making sure we have all the contact information in order. We know the right people at the organizations, or at some organization, the multiple people, because there's a lot going on. So we're collecting all that information. That should be finalized by the end of this month. Okay, with that, I'll jump to the last section. I know we're tight on time. So I'll share out some baseline evaluation data. I want to mention that at a recent research evaluation and data subcommittee meeting, I shared data that I'll share some examples here today from the All Payers, All Claims that we compiled to give a little snapshot of what potentially could be used to evaluate treatment funding going out to communities. Today, like I mentioned, I'm just going to give examples of what this data look like, so the whole board can see it. But these data are shared through 2023 and should be considered as an example of what's possible. The details of the data, so for example, what's happening specifically in certain counties or in certain communities, are really interesting, and I hope you all can use the full slide deck to use that to inform your funding allocation in the future. In terms of evaluation, though, these are to give you a snippet of what you can look like and how you can evaluate the funding as an impact in communities and across the state. So with that, I will jump in. Okay, first, I've been saying all payers, all claims, and I know some people are really familiar with this data, and some of this may be a new concept, so I just want to take a minute to explain what it is. All payers, all claims data, which is sometimes referred to as APAC, you'll hear me saying, or claims data, is a large data set that has medical and pharmacy claims from Medicaid, Medicare Advantage, Medicare fee-for-services, and commercial sources all combined together. OHA oversees the main APAC data set in the state, and then Comagine Health has a version of that data. We drafted evaluation plans, as I mentioned, that the RED subcommittee and OSPTR board can use to decide next steps for evaluating OSPTR grantee funding impacts. The treatment evaluation plan specifically proposed to use claims data to examine 3 key outcomes: expanding reach, increasing equity, and describing characteristics of treatment provided by grantee programs. The purpose of this initial baseline analysis and the data I'll be sharing today was to set up a process for tracking several new outcome measures, inform board decisions on evaluation planning, and to provide information for future funding considerations. Data presented today, again, is just a subset, and I'm happy to share the full slides if folks don't have that, or I guess they're probably posted publicly on OHA's website for these meetings, but happy to share those directly too. So we can look at these data that I'm sharing at multiple levels, so we can share at the state level, the county level, and eventually at the county service area level. The ultimate goal always with this kind of analysis would be to be as specific as possible about what grantee services are being provided and where, so that we can connect funding really closely to the impact, even at the community level. All right. Here is the first example of some of the data. And this is an example of the data presented at the state level. So data shows that although the number of people diagnosed with OUD in Oregon has increased, the treatment gap since 2016 has decreased over time. So meaning the individuals who have been diagnosed with OUD receiving treatment. You can see this in the green. So over time, the percentage of people that did not receive OUD treatment is decreasing over time. With more recent and future years of data, we'd be able to use advanced analytics to indicate when areas received OSPTR board funding to see if changes are statistically significant. And then here is an example of APAC data displayed by region. The graphic on the left shows rates of OUD by region from 2016 to 2023. The Southwest region, which is Josephine and Jackson counties, has the highest rates of OUD among regions. The graphic on the right shows that treatment gap again, the percentage of people with OUD not receiving treatment. And the central region had the highest percentage decrease in treatment gap. But as you can see across regions, the treatment gap has decreased quite a bit over time. And then here is an example of looking at the data broken down by various demographic and geographic groups. I just will quickly highlight some key takeaways by group. So we can see that people 65 and older had the largest gap in treatment, and people younger than 18 experienced the smallest decrease in the gap. A slightly higher percentage of Hispanic people with OUD are not receiving treatment. There is little difference between males and females related to the treatment gap. Black or African American people experience the smallest percent decrease in the number of people with OUD not receiving treatment. And then finally, a higher percentage of people in frontier and rural communities do not receive treatment for OUD. Okay, another cool thing that we did. So we also explored travel time to the nearest OTP, and you can see the black dots on the map are OTP locations. And we use census tract data to map areas into 2 groups. The first group is that like dark purple group, which is individuals who live in areas where it would take 20 minutes or less to drive to the closest OTP. And then the pink area across the state is areas where it would take more than 20 minutes to drive to the closest OTP. And you can see they kind of follow the main roadways in our state. There is a lot of geographic space that you can see that's pink that requires large travel times across the state. And the reason we picked that 20-minute cutoff time is because previous research has shown that methadone utilization decreases when people must drive more than 20 minutes to an OTP. You'll see here that 41% of Oregonians in 2023 with OUD would need to travel more than 20 minutes to an OTP. And for 9% of people, that was over 80 minutes to drive to the closest OTP. In future years, it would be interesting to see how these numbers changed based on OTPs that have opened because of OSPTR board funding. Okay, just a couple more slides here. So when we're looking at rate per 1,000 people with OUD, the rates of people with OUD who use buprenorphine has nearly tripled from 2016 to 2023. The methadone rate has remained stable. And the rate of people with OUD receiving MOUD through telemedicine has jumped quite a bit. It jumped quite a bit in the time frame of 2019 to 2020, and that has slowly decreased since then, giving that moment in our lives. And I just wanted to point out that mobile access is basically at zero. Access to mobile options is a place where we would expect to see change given the investments of the board. So that would be interesting to look at over time. When we look at percentage of people with OUD who use MOUD, the percentage of people who use buprenorphine has increased quite a bit. And also the percentage of people that are receiving medications through telemedicine has also jumped. It's almost nearing brick and mortar access. And looking at the data in this way is helpful because it shows over time a greater proportion of people are receiving medications in different ways. Okay, that's the last data slide. So there's just quite a bit to explore in these data to answer impact questions. I think what I presented is just a small portion of what is possible, and there's lots more possibilities, but I know I'm kind of over time here, so I'm just going to skip through. You have these possibilities in your slide deck that you can explore. And I just want to thank you all for the opportunity. I hope there's time for questions and comments. If not, please feel free to reach out to me in the future. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Erin. Gosh, that was such great information. I definitely wish we had way more time. So yes, we can definitely have time for a few questions, but I do want to try and move on to our next presenter so we don't go too far beyond. But Rep. Frederick?
I just I have a question, not a question, but a suggestion if possible. On your slide that's labeled "What is program monitoring?" I'm not sure how far back that is, maybe 8 or something like that. Anyway, I would ask that you perhaps add another question, and that is, what are you finding that's new? Any new discoveries as a result of the program itself? If you can add that to it, it would be something I'd be curious to see whether we're finding changes that might be necessary in particular groups. So I'm curious about that.
Thank you. That's a great suggestion. I know we have that second one that's built on existing. I think asking what's new is really important. Thank you for adding that.
Sure.
Fernando?
Kind of a bit of a nuanced question. With the all payer, all claims, we're using the word treatment. We're not able to access information about people accessing non-Medicaid based services, right? Stuff that's not diagnosed and not being billed to an insurance company.
Yes, good thing to point out, Fernando. Thank you for mentioning that. This is people who have been diagnosed and are receiving treatment in claims data.
So currently we don't have a great look into maybe some of the peer related services or the stuff that's more kind of like long-term recovery based services, correct?
Exactly.
Okay.
Mhm.
I'm wondering whether this could be supplemented by reports from the burn centers because that's the majority of the outreach and harm reduction funding in the state. And really, state of Oregon over the last few years with Measure 110 funding has really been able to develop a robust, at least in many areas, a robust harm reduction outreach model in addition to the treatment model. And I think that would be important and useful to understand.
I think that's a great suggestion. Thank you.
All right. Well, I appreciate that you provided your email address, Erin, and hopefully if people have items that they want to follow up with you on or more input to provide, then they will reach out to you, and I'm sure we'll interact with you more as we move forward. So again, I want to try and keep us moving forward and on time. And now I've already lost all of my So, sorry, I just want to make sure that I get to the right point here. So, I would like to say that one of the things that the board did this past biennium that I know you all are aware of and that I know I am really proud of is that we dedicated 30% of all of the state managed settlement funding to the federally recognized tribes. And this was one way that we are acknowledging the disproportionate impact that substance use disorder has on our tribal communities. So today we will hear briefly from Carissa Dwyer, and then Whitney Eust, the Behavioral Health Director of the Cow Creek Band of Umpqua Tribe of Indians. And I apologize if I said your last name incorrectly. Please let me know if I did. But really excited to hear a presentation today. So I will go ahead and turn it over to you, Carissa.
Good morning, everybody. As Carrie mentioned, my name is Carissa Dwyer. I'm the Tribal Behavioral Health Specialist with OHA working in Behavioral Health Division. And I just wanted to take a couple moments to talk about the process that we used after those funds were awarded and a little background on our work in partnership with the tribe. So if you can go to the next slide. So OHA and the state of Oregon honor the government-to-government relationship with the 9 federally recognized tribes of Oregon. And it's our responsibility as the tribal liaisons as part of tribal affairs to ensure that that's maintained and really guides the work that we do with tribes. And these are just kind of a couple key elements to highlight the focus of our work in honoring the government-to-government relationship. First and foremost, we listen. We listen to both, the tribes, individuals, families, and communities across the state of Oregon. We follow our federal laws, so understanding the federal Indian trust responsibility, honoring tribal sovereignty and data sovereignty, recognizing the rights of Indian tribes' self-determination and self-governance. And so what that means really is that we don't do anything for the tribes unless we've been directed by the tribes. And so that's really unique. I think we strive to do that with all Oregonians and constituents, but it's much more difficult in some situations. And what we do with the tribes is we meet regularly with them. We uphold our state law. We uphold our policy, which is the OHA and ODHS Tribal Consultation and Urban Indian Health Program Confer policy. And we go with their direction. We follow that and provide dedicated staff across OHA. So within each of the divisions across OHA overall. You can go to the next slide. So this is just a map of Oregon that provides you kind of the imagery to see where the 9 federally recognized tribes are in Oregon. And we work closely with all of them. I think Oregon is really unique in terms of how strong our relationship is with the 9 tribes. There are other states now that look to Oregon as a model on how to improve their government-to-government relationship with tribes. So I feel fortunate to be part of this and our work that we do, and really a lot of gratitude to this board for making such a substantial tribal set aside. You can go to the next slide. So as Carrie mentioned, it was substantial. It was 30%. So this 27 million only represents the portion that was contracted out for the first biennium, so the 23-25 biennium. And what we do, I think Lisa asked me just to talk about the process that we use in terms of determining the funding amounts. And so really, as part of our government-to-government process, we consult with the tribes and ask, have the conversation about what the funding is, what the needs are, determining the set-aside amount, and then having a conversation about what kind of funding formula to use. There are just a couple, like an equal distribution that we sometimes use, but in this case, each of the 9 tribes and the Urban Indian Health Program, NARA, received a base amount, and then the rest was split up amongst the 9 tribes using the Indian Health Service user population data. So we get that every year, and that really reflects the number of individuals each of the 9 tribes is serving. And then we developed the tribal template. So this was new. We had developed in 2023 a tribal specific grant agreement in partnership with DOJ and OCMP, the Office of Contracts and Procurement. And it was reviewed by all the tribal attorneys and tribal leadership. And then we were able to start using those. And so we use that same template moving forward for the opioid settlement agreements. And then just a brief hint on the ongoing communication that we do as tribal liaisons. We talk to the tribes every day. Julie as Johnson, as the Tribal Affairs Director, talks with tribal leaders. So tribal council members, tribal health directors. We meet monthly with the tribal health directors as part of the tribal monthly meetings. We meet quarterly through the Senate Bill 770 Health and Human Services cluster meetings. And we meet quarterly with the substance abuse, prevention, mental health, and overall behavioral health staff on a quarterly basis. And then when necessary, we host, formal tribal consultation. That's usually as a result of a Dear Tribal Leader letter being issued, offering funding or notifying of rule changes, anything that would significantly impact the tribes. And we ask for their input, their direction, and then if they would like tribal consultation, that's done as well. So that's just a brief snippet of kind of what we do and what our process was in terms of determining the funding amounts. We will, what we did establish that was rather unique in this process is a 14-year contract. And so those were issued specifically for the opioid settlement dollars and will be amended every 2 years to add additional funding as we move through the settlement period. So if anybody has any questions, you certainly can put them in the chat and I'll answer or follow up with you, but I don't want to take time away from Whitney because my job here today is really to introduce her. So as Carrie mentioned, she is the Behavioral Health Services Manager for the Cow Creek Band of Umpqua Tribe of Indians. She's been with the tribe for 5 years, and she has done some incredible work that I'm so excited for you to hear about, really maximizing dollars that were given to the tribes kind of in these last couple years, and then has plans for the opioid settlement dollars to really continue these incredible programs that she's been able to put into place. So I will turn it to you, Whitney.
Hello. So yes, I'm Whitney Youst. I have been here with Cow Creek in the Substance Use and Prevention Mental Health Department for 5 years now. And we've been working really hard on trying to get more services. About 5 years ago, what we're doing now was kind of just a thought. The program wasn't really established. We didn't have substance use treatment or anything at that time. So it's been a lot of building over the last few years. Now we have a full intensive outpatient program that we offer here. And the big thing that we've been able to do at this time with the funding is we're able to help the housing crisis for our patients that are in early recovery. But with that, we can carry it on to make sure that they are then able to find like full independence at the end. So it's not just a transition, get you sober, and then you're kind of out on your own trying to figure things out on your own. The way that we've been able to do that is we have a 3-phase transitional housing. Between the 3 phases, each one technically, realistically, we would like to see last 6 months to a year, but it's kind of individual based. Our first transitional housing phase would be intensive outpatient, where they are fully focused on recovery. They're just coming out of incarceration or inpatient treatment. And then they would be getting the 9+ service hours a week with us. And that's when they would qualify for an apartment. These apartments we had with one of the previous grants been able to start remodeling. And so now with the opioid settlement, we are able to continue that and get all of our phases completely remodeled and functioning correctly. And so kind of the big thing about phase 1, you're getting the 9+ service hours. You are meeting with a counselor one-on-one at least once a week, probably more than that. You have your social service case manager. We partner with social service where they're getting all the wraparound services they need, peer support, and then we connect them with any other community services. So most of the time, people in those areas we're transporting, we're picking them up 5 days a week, sometimes 7, depending on what's going on, and we're kind of with them all week long. When they transition into phase 2, which is like the big part of what this settlement is going to be really assisting with, is getting that phase kind of back up and going. They're going down a level of care at this point, and so they are going to start looking into job readiness. They're still going to be well into the groups with us in this treatment, and meeting weekly or biweekly, dependent on progress at this time. But it's time to start looking for work, and we assist them in trying to get them clothes, get them whatever they're needing for that. And then once they secure a job, that's when we kind of look at the schedule and what's going to work with them, and try to make a treatment plan based off what that consists of. Then phase 3 is we have some newer housing that's already developed, and that is for when they have maintained employment, they're about to graduate the substance use program, they're going into aftercare treatment for long-term sobriety, and they're saving up funds. They're trying to get to a place where they will be able to have sustainable living and be on their feet without having to wonder what they're going to do the next month. The clients will still have ongoing mental health treatment, anything else that they are needing at that time. They're going to have extensive case management in all 3 of these phases, and be able to connect with any resources that they need between multiple departments coming together for this. We've been able to have transportation all times, in county and out of county, kind of wherever they're needing to go. And also a lot of crisis support, a lot of people that are first getting sober, haven't been sober in a long time. They don't know what to expect. And so this is something where we've been able to be more available and closer by. Then some of the things that some of our success stories to this point. I have a tribal elder. He had a lifelong addiction. He had been using since he left Vietnam AMA, or not AMA, but left Vietnam, just took off. So he was facing some significant prison time. He was on tribal and state probation. Didn't know what sobriety was. He didn't live with power. He didn't have anything at this time. We were able to get him into a 30-day inpatient program. After that, he came to our program. And he went through the showing stability and coming in, going to all the groups, phasing out. At this point, we are about 1.5 years down the road. And he now is approaching 2 years of sobriety. He now has his own housing that he covers on his own, fully independent when it comes to that. And he is able to, he's off all probation state, and he's not facing any current legal charges. So he has decided this is where he found his family. This is his home. So he is not willing to stop coming to groups. He is not willing to walk away from us at this time. But the success and the light back in his eyes is something that so many of the tribal members that grew up with him, they just come in, and his graduation from probation was actually an amazing sight. It was just, the whole room was filled with people that were so proud of him and so excited to meet him again. Another really big success story that we have is we had a Native American from another tribe. They were struggling with addiction for a really long time. Children had been removed, and we were able to get them into treatment. It was a couple. They went to 2 separate treatments. When they came back, they came into housing, and they were able to be reunited with the kids. And then after completion of the program, I'm sorry, throughout the program, after they got to a certain point, we were able to put them through their CRM trainings and they completed those. So afterwards, they now both, one of them works with us as our peer support and is giving back. And then the other one is working for another Native American drop-in center here in town as a peer support as well. They now have their own housing. They fully functioning with their kids. And so, of course, there are some challenges that we've had with some clients, and it's not always easy having staff that are wanting to be out there helping. But the successes that we've seen having the wraparound service where they're not constantly worried about where they're going to be the next day or the next week and if they're going to have money has been really helpful. It's taken a large weight off of people going through addiction and trying to get sober to be able to just focus on their sobriety and their challenges at the beginning and not be worrying about, you know, how they're going to get their next meal or where they're going to sleep that night. It's not putting them back out into the homeless camp where everything is so readily available. Our big struggle is they can walk 2 blocks up the street and they can get whatever they need. And so being able to have that safe place with supportive members that technically become a family. We go down to the apartments and it's like everyone's outside gathering, just talking together. And it's really cool. If anything goes on there's so many other supports that they're able to lean on. It's really awesome to watch. And I think I just went through all of my speech really quick. So the impact transitional housing has become a critical resource for clients to achieve long-term recovery. We have a really strong interdepartmental collaboration that ensures clients have all the wraparound cultural and grounded supports that they need. And then the successes have demonstrated a transformative power of safe housing, structured support, and culturally informed SUD services. So if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Does anyone have questions for Nando?
Yeah, not a question, but more a comment. Say thank you. It's been on this board basically since the beginning, and we're often kind of just like pushing and pushing and pushing and working really hard to get people some help. And it really means a lot to hear back about how some of the work we've done is making an impact in people's lives. Like I was getting a little emotional just hearing it. So thank you.
Thank you guys for pushing for us.
Yeah, thank you so much. I too was getting emotional. I think that you know, when you see what it's like when people experience recovery and they get to that point in their sobriety where they have a little bit of time under their belt and the light comes back in their eyes, like just what an amazing gift. And when you said that they're not constantly worried about food or housing, and they're just really able to focus on recovery, and they're with a community of people that are doing the same thing, like it's just really meaningful. So really just appreciate you sharing that with us. Um, and grateful that, you know, we're able to help help provide some of the support through our funding. April.
Just echoing some of the gratitude and love shared for Whitney and the program you've built, and for Carissa for overseeing and coordinating this work from OHA and the board's decisions to help make these equitable contributions. Whitney, I was curious. I was trying to pull out where our funding is landing in the program, and I heard you talk about remodeling funding, so actually paying for some of the renovations of the housing itself. Are opioid settlement dollars covering additional costs for this program? And how many units of housing are you supporting currently? I think it's thinking about what a gift and a real life-changing catalyst the safe and stable housing is for people as a starting place for recovery and for health and wellness in general. Being able to quantify what that is that's working for your program is really helpful to understand the scale.
So at this time, each phase has about 10 units. Another thing that we are able to do is we are able to get emergency housing. So if we have somebody that is out on the streets, they're done, they're ready to go to treatment, they're needing somewhere to stay until we get them into a bed, we are able to get them a hotel or something else as needed to have a safe place to stay until they go. I've got to say, I've pulled into the parking lot and somebody's, stopped me and been like, I died last night and I'm done and I don't want to be out here anymore. And so sometimes we can get somebody into treatment within 24 hours. Sometimes it takes 2 weeks. But during that time, we want to make sure that they have somewhere safe to go. We know that they want to make those changes and we want to give them every opportunity. It also is helping cover salary for people out there doing the work. And then I don't have my spending plan in front of me. It was planned that I would have that, but those are the main things. It is doing remodel. We do have salary, emergency services. So being able to get clients things in a time of emergency are the three main things that I can think of at this time.
Carissa?
I just want to pop in a little bit to kind of help illustrate how Whitney's been able to kind of really maximize and leverage funding. So back in 2023, the tribes received a set aside of residential and housing funds from the legislature. And that was used to kind of initiate these remodels or phases, as that she's talking about, in terms of offering transitional housing. And what she's been able to do is kind of use those initial funds to start the process of securing the property, starting the remodels of, the initial units, one of which was the family that she described. And we were able to see the development of those, remodels happen. And that family was actually living there at the time. And then utilizing the Measure 110 burn funding to really help support the staff, the payment of staff and services on an ongoing basis, since those residential and housing funds were one-time funds. And then as she was discussing, there's this phase 2 to continue those remodels and add kind of this next step level in terms of recovery support housing. And then we'll continue doing that. And I want to mention that because what's really unique about these funds in particular is this 14-year contract period. And so the tribes are not rushing to utilize those funds. They're really trying to be thoughtful and strategic about how they utilize it, because it's not often that we're able to provide such substantial ongoing funding to the tribes. And that makes a huge amount of difference versus the one time, here we have some funds, can you hurry up and use this, right? And so what Whitney did was kind of take those one-time funds initially, start the process, use the burn funding for kind of, staff support initially, and now able to expand that and continue on with adding this, phase 2 and ultimately phase 3 with these funds.
All right. Well, I want to thank both of you for sharing this information with us today. It was really wonderful to hear all of the work that has been going on, and just really want to, again, say thank you so much for everything you're doing and for sharing it with us. And we'll look forward to seeing more wonderful impacts as we move forward with this. So thanks again. I want to keep us moving and keep us on time. So I'm going to go ahead and have us move on to the next agenda item, where we will hear from Matt Owen, who is the Managing Director of ORTC, and he's going to tell us more about their work to expand treatment options in Oregon. So Matt, I'll go ahead and turn it over to you.
Okay. Are you going to change the slides or is that me?
I think somebody may be
Yes.
changing them for
Great.
you.
I'll just say,
Not me.
slide or whatever. So appreciate it. And thank you, Carrie. Thank you, y'all for, keeping this on time. So we'll do our best to follow in that trend. As Carrie said, my name is Matt Owen. I'm the managing director for Organ Recovery and Treatment Centers. With me today is Miss Megan Marks, who is our director of integrated care, and just happy to be here to update you on what we've kind of been up to with our grant award. Slide. Just a quick reminder about us. We are a network of opioid treatment programs specializing in medication-assisted treatment for people suffering from opioid use disorder. That basically means that we use medications like methadone and buprenorphine to stabilize the physical symptoms of that individual's addiction, and then simultaneously are engaging them on the clinical side with group individual counseling, case management, and referrals to treat the myriad of other issues that folks are kind of dealing with during their recovery. Our team has tons of experience, well over 100 years, I think, in management, and our management team at this point, working in urban, suburban, and rural settings. In Oregon, we seem to, I guess our niche now is kind of more the suburban, rural areas. We're small town folks, so that's the place that we're all generally kind of comfortable. So happy and really proud to serve those areas. And we are um, licensed by the state, DEA, SAMHSA, and we are accredited by the Joint Commission. Next slide. But really, all of that just adds up to our mission, which is, creating facilities where, God forbid, any of us, if we were in that situation where we needed care or a loved one needed care, we could answer this question: would you trust the person you love the most to our care, honestly, each morning? And that's not just in the services that our providers are giving to folks, but just walking in the door and having a nice, clean, welcoming space. Front desk is treating them, kindly. Any encounter they have is a positive one. So that's just generally the ultimate goal, is to create spaces like that the communities that we serve can be proud of and can be proud of, including us in their continuum of care. Next slide. Today, wanted to kind of focus on the places where we have kind of flags planted. So Redmond, the Dalles, and Klamath. I know it was mentioned we had been awarded grants for Eastern Oregon. Don't have a flag in the ground, which is why I didn't put a star on there. But we are generally looking at Baker City and Ontario. Real estate has definitely become an issue out there. It's just very limited. Thought honestly we had found a space in Ontario a couple months ago, and then the owner, after discussing with them and our use, et cetera, just kind of backed out of that. But we have a real estate firm in Eastern Oregon that's constantly kind of on the hunt, trying to find spaces. And we actually have a couple meetings with some private entities coming up in 2026. So we're hoping we can start nailing something down. Plus, as you'll see, our capacity to get new things open is going to increase here very shortly. And you'll see we're also happy to announce that the Dalles is opening up on December 10th. A little bit more about that in a minute. Regarding the medication van in Lane County, we are working on that. Admittedly, the CCO transition situation there has impacted. We're kind of letting some things settle down and shake out before we really kind of continue planning there. But obviously, hopefully, once that gets sorted out here next February and things are kind of stable again, we'll be in a better position to move forward with that. Next slide. So happy to report that we were able to open up Redmond this past March. We've done 139 intakes since then. Most of our metrics that we take regarding criminality, housing, workforce, et cetera, we do kind of on an annual basis. So we don't have that data right now, but every month we are giving folks a quick brief addiction monitoring assessment. And so, just through that, we've been able to see some significant improvement in the lives of folks. Obviously, reduction in use is great, risk factors, so people aren't putting themselves in situations where relapse is a possibility, or trying to stay away from high risk behaviors, et cetera. But just as importantly, we've seen an increase in protective factors. Well, that's coping skills, but largely it's been a lot of social support, motivation, recovery. So when those stressors ultimately do rise, which they happen every time, people are in a better place to kind of push back against those. And I think when we had talked to y'all last, opening up Redmond was really about kind of us creating another dot on that map that Aaron showed with us. It was kind of cool to see that, in a little way, we had kind of definitely already impacted that 20-mile radius. because about half of those intakes are folks who were traveling to Bend for treatment, and as North Bend and Redmond kind of grow, and that traffic it just becomes longer and longer, throughout time. It's becoming more and more difficult for folks. So Redmond was really a huge benefit for these people, for us to be able to get that open. And Megan actually has a couple stories, so I'll kick it over to her to kind of to share with her, share with you some of the stories of success we've had in Redmond. Megan, slide please.
Thanks, Matt. Yeah, so we wanted to give you a little more in-depth sense of what it means to meet the clients where they are. And uh, in one case, specifically when we were able to open up the Redmond Clinic, uh, we actually had a client who had been receiving care from us in Bend, struggled because their job was in Redmond. They were from Redmond, and it was difficult for them to meet the requirements of their job and actually left treatment in Bend before we opened Redmond, but then came to Redmond shortly after we opened to re-engage in care. And as a result, because now we're offering treatment in the community that he lives in, he was able to resolve his challenges in getting to work on time and has recently received a promotion at work. I would add that for this client, there were some other significant health issues. He'd been diagnosed with cancer, and that was also a challenge in terms of addressing his physical health concerns. And thankfully, he's now in remission, which is great, and is able to coordinate all of his care much more effectively when it's in the community where he lives. The second client is a client that did transfer from Bend to Redmond when we opened, a client who had continually been struggling to address other mental health concerns, and in the process of transferring care to Redmond, was able to better engage in the mental health care that they needed in addition to receiving medication-assisted treatment with us, and is doing very well now in being able to access both aspects of care in her life. So it was a huge difference for those folks, and we're pleased that they've had that success. Next slide.
Thanks, Megan. Just kind of fast forward a little bit, the Dalles. Actually, I should say rewind, really. I think the last time that we had spoken with this board, our slide deck had the same three, Redmond, the Dalles, Klamath Falls on there, and all of them said, shovel ready, which was definitely true. And Redmond, other than some minor, really construction delays surrounding materials, specifically doors, we got open about when we thought we would. The Dalles, was kind of an interesting story. We had a location identified. The 1,000-foot rule. We have to work with Dr. McElveen. Anytime we find an address, we give him the address. He runs it by the Department of Education, who comes back and says yes, yes or no. There is a school, daycare, etc. in there. At which point, then we move forward with trying to lease the space that we're going to be going into. So we had gone through that process, in the Dalles. Began negotiating the lease. That took another month and a half. Found a construction firm, found an architect, et cetera, submitted plans. Didn't hear anything from the city for about the plans for a month and a half, which is not abnormal. I mean, it takes the time it takes. But we're surprised to get a letter back saying they cannot issue us permits because we were within 1,000 feet of a daycare. It turns out what had happened was that we had, submitted to Dr. McLean, and the Department of Education had cleared us. In between that date and the date we signed the lease, a daycare was opened. So we then had to pivot to trying to get a waiver, and this is where Commissioner Traeger actually came in to help because she's worked with us through waivers before. Megan and I reached out to county commissioners of Wasco County. I think Commissioner Traeger was able to help them in the sense that, obviously Wasco has never encountered anything like this, much less a waiver. So kind of giving her the experience of Lane County having done this a couple times. And the county commissioners were great. I think it was a great opportunity for us to connect with them. Got a presentation together. We're going to present to Wasco County Commissioner Board and the public hearing, et cetera. And then during that, the county attorney piped up and reminded the county commissioners that they had actually delegated their authority to vote on these things to the North Columbia Public Health District, which meant Megan and I had to kind of go back to the drawing board and set up meetings with folks from the North Columbia Public Health District. That went well. And right before we were actually about to brief, an individual called us and said, "Oh, by the way, that daycare actually closed a couple months ago." So then we went back to Dr. McElveen, and he went back to the Department of Education. We got that cleared, resubmitted permits, et cetera, which kind of delayed us, obviously, getting construction started. I think at this point we were into, April or so, April, May. Construction generally went fine. There were really no issues there. We had the states and the DEA come out in early September. As reported to, Dana Bowman reported, we were looking for staff, and that was a little bit of a challenge. Really were able to work through that, thankfully, pretty quickly. But then the government shutdown occurred, and we had not received our SAMHSA license yet. So we were then again in a holding pattern, waiting on that. And fortunately, government shutdown ended. We got our SAMHSA license. We were able to re-engage with most of the staff that we had planned to bring on, and then uh, finally got to where we can honestly say we're excited to be opening here in a few days, next week. We are estimating at a steady census of 120 to 150 patients. But just kind of like as an aside, Kirsty Kirk Lewis, one of our colleagues who some of you know, was actually there doing training with the staff. And lady raised her hand and asked Kersey, well, where's the other location? And so Kersey started talking, well, we're in Eugene and Bend and Redmond and Grants Pass. And she said, no, the other location in the Dalles. And she's like, well, what are you talking about? She's like, oh, we're not going to be able to, we're not going to have a space to treat all the people who are going to come in here, which verified the need, but at the same time was a bit of a heart attack for us if it actually comes to fruition that we did not get big enough space. But, we can definitely see, and Megan is going to speak about this here in a second, that through outreach with the community and integrating with them, we can definitely see there's a need there. And we're going to be really excited to be able to fill that. So I'll turn it back over to Megan to talk a little bit about the outreach in the Dalles.
Thanks, Matt. Next slide. So we've actually done quite a bit of outreach throughout this process. We recognized early on that it was going to be important to establish relationships with a variety of organizations and individuals in the community. And that experience has all been very positive. We've had great outreach to the organizations that you see listed here, and they've been very welcoming and very helpful. I will add, and I think it's important, especially considering some of your funding priorities, that we have reached out and had a very good meeting with the Washington County Sheriff's Department, and they're very interested in pursuing a relationship with us in terms of working with their carceral population as well, which we have some experience with. So we're thrilled about that, and we anticipate a great opening next week. Back to you, Matt.
All right, thank you. Next slide, please. On to Klamath. Working with, not against, community. Similar to the Dalles, when we had spoke with this board last in, I think, July 2024, we had already identified a location that would work great. It was outside of the 1,000-foot rule, nothing crazy, where a daycare opened up intermittently. And we had met with several community partners, county commissioners, EMS, Barb Heath and her team at Transformations, Klamath County Behavioral Health, Health District, et cetera, and specifically Sky Lakes Medical. And everyone agreed there was a need, agreed the location we're going to, there was a need in the area. So we moved forward with construction, which generally was fine, no problems there. About late November, we were basically done with construction of 2024. I think Dr. McElveen and Manuela come down to inspect. The DEA had been out. We were kind of just waiting on some licenses, and our contractor was out there putting up some security gating, and we got a stop work notice posted on the building. It's definitely a longer story, but what it kind of came down to, any of us who are from small towns know that at times there are individuals within a community who sometimes have an outsized influence on what goes on in those communities. And we had unknowingly kind of ran afoul of one of those folks. And so we started getting a lot of not we don't want you in Klamath, but we just don't want you where you are. And little things, cracks in the sidewalk, et cetera, et cetera. Red tape kept getting thrown up, and we also came to understand it was probably going to be pretty uncomfortable place for our staff to be working. And that's though at the same time where the community really stepped in a big way. Like shout out to Commissioner Kelly Minty, who I think many of you know, as well as David Cobble and the board over at Sky Lakes Medical. And so what ended up happening was Sky Lakes graciously stepped in. And ORTC, we had never bought a building before. We had actually purchased this building, which admittedly was a little bit scary for us. But the flip side was it actually turned out to be a good thing because we weren't in a long-term lease. But Skylakes actually bought that building from us, and then turned around and is leasing us space on a kind of what's becoming a behavioral health sort of campus, or eventually is going to become that in the Klamath area. Megan, we'll speak about that in a moment. But the reason we really hadn't looked over there initially was the building we're going into backs up to a Head Start daycare. And so that's where Commissioner Minty really stepped in and set us up with meetings with the Head Start. We went down there several times and met with those folks and talked through any potential issues. And then the Klamath County Board of Commissioners voted to give us the variance. Obviously, got the lease in place with Sky Lakes. We're able to move forward with construction. And happy to say, as you can kind of see from some of the pictures there, we're kind of nearing the end of that. Hopefully going to be getting some inspections scheduled soon and get that open here in early 2026. Obviously, unfortunate for how things got delayed, but I think long term, not only from the location, but from the community buy-in, and the fact that the community really had to rally around and make this happen and kind of make this facility their own, I think is going to pay dividends long term because we've been able to connect with a lot of great people, great organizations. Cascade Health Alliance has been great helping us get this going. So definitely unfortunate circumstances, definitely not what we thought was going to happen. But I think when we look back, 5, 10 years from now, we're going to be glad things kind of turned out the way they are. And we do have that estimated need, 150, 200 patients. That potentially again could be bigger than that. And then really the huge thing for that location is going to be the reduction in travel time because right now folks are traveling, over the mountain into Medford or all the way up to Bend to receive treatment. But yeah, that's the synopsis there. And I'll let Megan talk a little bit more about that kind of campus and the outreach we've done in Klamath Falls. Go ahead, Megan.
Thanks, Matt. Next slide, please. So, it occurs to me this is a little bit like getting lemons and making lemonade, if that's a good way to think of it, because what was potentially a really difficult situation has really turned into a great opportunity for us to do networking and to work with the community to make this happen. And I think that in the long run, being in a more sort of behavioral health neighborhood will be a great benefit to not just our organization, but all the organizations that will be working there together. If any of you are familiar at all with what's going on in Klamath, so where we will be located is also in the same neighborhood, really in the same general area as where Transformations is putting their new program. There's also Klamath Works is located there. The withdrawal program is located there. So there are a lot of neighbors that will be working together with some of the very same individuals that are accessing care in all those sites. And we're excited for that. It'll be a great benefit to all the clients for sure. And I will say that it's been my recent experience in working with folks in Klamath, running into them in a variety of places. Everybody's very excited about what's happening there now. So we're very pleased that it's turned out this way, and we're grateful for the relationships that have been developed as a result. So next slide. So with that, I will turn it back over for whatever questions that you guys might have. I think we still have a few minutes before our time is up, before we go to break. So thanks so much.
Yeah, we do have time for questions if anybody has anything. Rick?
Hey, Matt, I just want to sympathize, having tried to place programs in small towns before. I totally get your experience.
Yep.
And I do have to say we do have operations down there, and we really do need an OTP in Klamath Falls. So really appreciate that you are willing to tolerate the small townness of trying to find a place. But I think it'll be really good. So thanks for your work on that.
So thanks, Rick. And we're actually our new location, I think, is kind of in your neighborhood. So excited about that. And I think our team's already reached out to your folks down there. So looking forward to working with you all. And we do love Klamath Falls, and we're not going to let, a couple people spoil a great town for us.
Yeah, Joe Allred is a great program director we have down there. He'll help you out however you want. He's old school Klamath.
Great. Thank you.
All right. Well, if there are no other questions or comments, we can wrap up this presentation. Thank you so much. I keep thinking about that slide deck that slide that had the picture of our state and the 20-minute drive times to the facilities, and being in one of those very pink areas and knowing that you're working on it is very reassuring. And I'm definitely grateful for all of the efforts that you're making to increase access in our state. So thank you so much for all that you're doing and for sharing it with us today.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
So I cannot believe it, but we are actually a little bit ahead of schedule. So I want to check in with the team here and see, do we come back at the time that we had planned to come back, or do we just take 10 minutes?
I think let's take 10 minutes and I will reach out to our panelists in the meantime and make sure they can hop on a little early. I think Sarah's already here.
Wonderful.
I
All
think
right.
Oh, and Mary. Yeah. I think we're all here. Yes, let's just take our 10 minutes
Okay.
and then we'll start a little early, and that'll be good for Mary because I think Mary has to leave early.
Yes. Thanks. Wonderful. All right. We'll see everybody back in 10. Hello, are we ready to get started?
Seeing thumbs up, so I think so.
Awesome, let's go. So welcome back, everyone. So in our last meeting, some board members expressed an interest in hearing from local agencies. My camera is not on. Hello, sorry. Local agencies, public health experts, and others who are working to address substance use disorder in their communities. So we put together a small panel to provide you with that opportunity. With us, we have Mary Rumbaugh. I probably got that wrong. You'll have to tell me.
You got it right. I think you got it right.
You got it right, Rumbaugh.
From the Association of Oregon Cities, Cheryl Ramirez. From the Association of Oregon County Mental Health Professionals or Community Mental Health Professionals, I don't know. And Sarah Lochner from the Conference of Local Health Officials. So I am very excited for this panel and really excited to have you all here. Thank you all for taking the time to present today. And I think that we're going to start with Mary because I think Mary has a time limit today.
I do. I so apologize. I'm actually needing to go to my award luncheon for 25 years of service at the county. So doesn't fare well to be late to that. So yeah, I will go first and then I will have to log off about 12:10. But thank you so much for having me. I was asked to represent Clackamas County through our association with with Oregon counties. So again, my name is Mary Rumbaugh and I'm the Health, Housing, and Human Services Director for Clackamas County. And the Board of County Commissioners here at the county has designated the sort of management of the opioid settlement funds that the county gets directly through my office. So we are expecting over the 18-year period to get right now 29 million plus. As you all know, there continues to be settlements, so dollars will continue to come in beyond what we know our payment schedule to be. The commissioners have approved of investments across the main areas you all would expect. Things, of course, prevention, implementation, evaluation, worm handoff and recovery services, treatment, and we've done a large investment in our future recovery campus, which will, assuming we can find all the funding we need, will include things like withdrawal management, residential treatment, recovery housing, outpatient, peers, all on one campus. And some of the investments have included things certainly focused on prevention. Prevention continues to be a really key. It's an interesting conversation within the Board of County Commissioners around this need and desire to see a large treatment program here in the county, which we do not have, even as the third largest county. But if we are not doing the prevention, if we're not sort of avoiding folks sort of coming through that front door, it then becomes a challenge, right? So we have investments in current programs like what's called our Project Hope program. This is a community paramedic model that partners with a peer. And so we do follow up after somebody has had an overdose save. We have also expanded our methadone treatment in our local jail. We have an amazing partnership with our local jail, and we've created a substance use focused doula program with one of our community-based organizations. So that's just a few of the highlights. You can always go to our web. We have a dedicated web page that lists all of our current investments. So I'll stop there in case you guys want to do some additional introductions of my colleagues.
Yeah, let's thank you, Mary. Let's hear from Cheryl next and then from Sarah. And then I'll have a question again for you, Mary.
Sure. And just a quick question. Is the League of Oregon Cities on our panel? Because I wasn't quite sure about that. I see Scott Winkle's coming.
Yeah, I see. He just messaged me and yeah, I guess there was some confusion on my part and so Scott, welcome to the panel. And you'll introduce yourself after Sarah.
Just want to save time for Scott. So my name is Cheryl Ramirez. I'm the Executive Director of the Association of Oregon Community Mental Health Programs. We're the trade association that represents all community mental health programs, or CMHPs, across the state in every single county. Some of them cover more than one county, like Rick Trelevin's Best Care covers 2 counties, and most just cover 1 county, like Clackamas, Mary Rumbaugh, and Nick in Washington County. About half of our community mental health programs are county departments, again, like Washington or Clackamas County here, and about half are not-for-profit agencies like Best Care and many others, particularly in Eastern Oregon and in the more rural counties of Oregon. My job is to advocate for system policy improvement in the behavioral health system space. By the way, we also represent community developmental disabilities programs, and I don't do that advocacy work, but I have a colleague who works with CDDPs, so just wanted to mention that. So my job is to advocate for sound behavioral health system policy and for the resources we need to fund our system adequately and sustainably. So that's my role.
Good morning, everyone. This is Sarah Lochner. I'm the Executive Director of the Coalition of Local Health Officials, representing Oregon's 33 local public health departments, which are county-based. We have 4 or 5 that are not counties run by the county, but are contracted out to a nonprofit or have another public-private partnerships style of operations. And similar to Cheryl, we are a member-based organization, and my job is to advocate for local public health departments. Is that all you want out of me at this moment, or should I launch into other things?
I think that's fine, Sarah. We have lots of other questions, so there'll be lots of opportunities for you to get things in that you want to get in.
Great.
Okay, Scott, you're up.
Good afternoon or morning still. Thank you for having me. I'm Scott Winkles. Among other things, I am the League's League of Oregon Cities lobbyist responsible for all things public safety and public health. League of Oregon Cities is an association that's comprised of all 241 incorporated cities in the state of Oregon, and we represent them collectively. I'm prepared to address how some of our members are addressing the ongoing overdose crisis locally. I can do that now, or when you're ready for that, and talk about sort of our perspective on where we go from here.
Yeah, okay. Let's, Mary, just off of building from what Scott had said about current perspectives, I'll ask you, and then any of the other panelists who wants to jump in can do so, but how would you describe the current substance use disorder opioid landscape?
I think, there continues to be a recognition of the ongoing sort of need within the community, and also the opportunity that the opioid settlement dollars, both that through the state allocation, the county, and then the city. So I'm actually glad Scott is here, because I think there's some great examples where there's some nice partnership happening with local cities and counties as well to really leverage some of those dollars. We are moving the needle in some areas, and we're not moving the needle in other areas. That the overdose rates continue to climb, and so we are constantly in this evaluation of really what are the best innovative programs to get in front of the fact that people are still dying every single day. And so I would not, it's not my personality to say that this is bleak, but I will say that it is, the data is not as promising as I would like to see, because the challenges with methadone or with fentanyl and illicit drugs are they're just right there on the street. And so it will take a very comprehensive approach to housing, treatment, access to really continue to move the dial. So we have a lot of work ahead of us still.
Yeah, thank you. And Cheryl, Sarah, or Scott, anything to add there?
Yeah, I just want to say, first of all, I want to invite the CMHPs who are on your board, Rick and Nick, to chime in and offer their experiences and examples in their counties. That'd be great. But I just wanted to say I would echo what Mary has just said, and I want to add that we have additional, I would say, federal challenges right now in terms of restricting harm reduction efforts and supplies, housing first models. And so I think it's, even if we're seeing the overdose rate go down, we're having more challenges in policy. And so we're going to continue to struggle with the need for, well, let's say, harm reduction supplies in general, Narcan and potency testing kits, et cetera. So that's an additional challenge.
And
Thank you.
Sarah
Yeah.
here, I would
Just really quickly say, I just wanted to, Cheryl, thank you for inviting the board members who are CMHPs to chime in. And we have the benefit of hearing from them quite often. And so we're glad that you're here to share your perspective today. Go, Sarah.
I just wanted to also reemphasize primary prevention. I feel like politicians invest in the crises that they can see with their own eyes. They don't tend to invest upstream because it's not a visible, tangible problem and it's not a visible result. And so, until the Opioid Settlement Board invested in prevention with one-time dollars. The only prevention dollars that local public health had was in the ADPEP federal grant, which is, I believe, $10 million a year divided by 36 counties, 9 tribes, and a host of CBOs. So the money does not go very far. And so I think really the missing thing that we need to help from throwing people into the addiction and substance use stream is that upstream prevention, and we need reliable ongoing dollars to build a program so that we can invest in every child in Oregon and help them establish a lifestyle that's healthy and not built on the use of substances. So I just wanted to throw that in there in addition to all the things that Mary and Cheryl said. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for bringing up primary prevention in this conversation. Appreciate that. So, Cheryl, when you are talking to your members, the folks that you're representing, what are you hearing about the most pressing needs concerning substance use disorder and opioid use?
Well, this probably won't be new information for any of you or a surprise, but what we need is sustainable funding for programs, both prevention and treatment programs. We've really appreciated the opioid settlement dollars, the burn funding, and the state general funds that we can use for substance use disorder prevention and treatment. And CMHPs, I would say, are masterful at braiding these funds together so they can create a program and hopefully a sustainable program. That the problem that we've had is that the one-time funding really does not sustain a program. So we just need a more stable funding source. And we'd like to be able to have some flexibility to balance both prevention and treatment needs. And I just want to double down on what Sarah has already said, that we need prevention dollars in general. And it is really difficult to prove your outcomes when you're preventing something from happening. So yeah, it's hard to get legislatures to fund prevention, but only less than 1% of the public behavioral health system is for prevention, and that is just not enough to prevent the bad things from happening. While we spend a great deal of our resources, workforce, time on that upper part of the pyramid, those who are in acute and crisis care needs and have already not only entered the addictions world, but they have gone into the justice system, so the criminal justice system. So a lot of time with what we call forensic clients. So we'd like to prevent that from happening.
Thanks, Cheryl. Scott, what are your thoughts on that? What you're hearing from your members about the most pressing needs concerning substance use disorder and opioid use?
So Oregon's a big place and with a lot of different communities, and we don't hear, I'm not hearing a trend that I would say reflects the general city experience. I think what we're seeing, I think the numbers have gone down. I hate to use the word reduction because reduction from what and from when. There are fewer overdose cases now, but I understand that is ticking up, and also it's still unacceptably high. But we have seen cases in parts of Oregon where there have been surges of overdoses. I haven't heard a lot about cluster overdose incidences recently, but I know in Clatsop County they did see a surge in overdoses. That's around Astoria, Warrenton, Hammond, that area of the state. So they're seeing that. I think one of the crying needs is simply availability of treatment for much of the state. I think the map that showed who was able to get into treatment within 20 minutes was really telling. Large swaths of the state, and it didn't cover some of our more impacted counties. So Curry County had a significant challenge with overdoses, and that entire county is outside of the 20-minute a 20-minute radius from a provider. So that's continually to be a problem. I think we do have some cities that are looking at this creatively. I used to say Oregon cities were not behavioral health providers. That's not true anymore. City of Salem sought to address the vast disparity, overrepresentation of people experiencing homelessness in our overdose crisis. And so next month they'll be starting a program where they pair a behavioral health specialist. They're hiring someone at the bachelor level because of the lack of availability for the master's level caregivers, pairing those with a paramedic to address, try to get ahead of or mitigate the challenge they're experiencing among their population that's experiencing homelessness. Portland devoted an entire team, overdose response team as well, to address that. I think the challenges, and you hear this all the time, it's about resources. Police departments want to address, they want to be proactive, but we're one of the lowest police per 1,000 states in the country, and it's hard for them to do that if all they're doing is going call to call to call.
Yeah, thank you. And Mary, what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I really appreciate and echo everything that my colleagues are saying. We will need to continue to be really innovative and creative and leveraging the resources. At least in Clackamas, our data is still showing our overdose numbers going up and not down. They're not off the chart, but they're not going in the direction that we would want. I did want to highlight another example of city county partnership. So the Gladstone Police Department their city council approved all opioid funds going to hire a case manager that will do follow-up response after law enforcement intervention. So a county employee who's embedded with the Gladstone PD specific to addressing folks who, come to their attention because of overdose and or maybe are indicating that they, are ready to get some assistance on their journey, their recovery journey. So I think that is the kind of partnership and creativeness, because the dollars, while overall look really big, the way that they come in is you have to get really creative with how you're doing those investments as well. So I just think we have to be talking to our communities. We have to be talking to other parts of the system and really come together. And Clackamas being the third largest county, we really continue to be pretty nimble and being able to get to the table to do some of the problem solving. So really hearing the unique needs from particular cities. We're a unique blend of urban and rural. So the needs are in Sandy are going to look very different than in Milwaukee. And so really understanding that. So we got to be listening for sure.
Yeah, thank you. Sarah, what are the challenges or barriers that you see that are making it harder to address those needs? I know you mentioned one-time funding. Maybe a little bit more about that, and then what else are you seeing?
Yeah, so counties like Marys and Clackamas and Deschutes County and other large counties that were also direct recipients of opioid settlement money and then also got money from you all in addition. They're the ones really seeing like being able to braid those funds and able to boost programs in because of that. And one of the challenges is that smaller counties that were not direct recipients are not able, they don't have as many resources. And so with rural counties, especially, we're seeing, well, across all counties, actually, we're seeing that folks are able to just support a little bit of staffing with the opioid settlement dollars, like either a zero point 0.1 FTE up to 0.5 FTE. And in small counties, a lot of county commissioners they don't allow hiring for like one-time funding or limited duration funding because they feel it makes the county look bad to hire someone, onboard them, and then have to lay them off. So that's one reason why having sustainable funding is so key. And so what we're seeing in these small counties is a lot of them are doing either a short series of events like health fairs or promotional events around prevention or harm reduction. And a lot of them, they are all partnering with other community partners to do so. Some have just contracted out the money to community partners to do the work and then have zero point 0.1 FTE overseeing the work. So I think the challenges really are around that sustained funding source so that they can build a program and go into schools and get all the kids under the net of prevention rather than just whoever shows up at those one-off events. I have a feeling that the people who really need the assistance are probably not coming to the events, right? So that sustained funding really is the challenge, and then also it would allow rural communities to hire more staff to do that work if it's a more permanent funding source. And then also, I'll just say one last challenge is that for counties that are not, or for my members, local public health that are not receiving the funding that you all gave out, because I'll just remind you the funding went to the current ADPEP recipients as a sort of boost to what they already get. And by way of background, local public health departments comprise 20 out of the 37 ADPEP recipients in the state, so over 54%. But for those that are not the ADPEP recipients, they are sort of like interested in the work, but some of them are not part of the work. There's not that community collaboration or that cross-sector collaboration that we would really like to see. I think, engaging with the community and with other interested agency partners always makes the results better. And just reflecting that while, as far as we know, all of them are using evidence-based practices, um, sometimes those evidence-based practices are specifically directed at white folks, and to reach communities of color or other cultures, sometimes we need to branch out beyond that and work with those communities to make sure that we are reaching everyone. So I'll just leave it at that. Thank you.
Thanks, Sarah. Mary, I know you, wow, just lost my voice there for a second. I know you have to leave in just a couple of minutes, so I wanted to give you a chance to respond to that question as well. The challenges or barriers you see that are making it harder to address those needs.
Yeah, really quickly, there's competing needs across the continuum of services, affordable housing, our incomes are not keeping with those who actually have an income. It's not keeping up with the rate of the costs of just living. And frankly, decades of underinvestment in the behavioral health system, we're continuing to crawl out of that. And, again, the primary prevention is every time there are cuts, that is what we cut. And so those are the just continual competing needs. I've been in this field for over 30 years. I have seen it. I continue to see it. And I just really appreciate all of the champions who are dedicating their time to this really important work. But we are going to continue to have to rally and highlight the continued challenges. And we eventually have to invest sustainably in the system if we are going to really bend the curve on overdose. So I really appreciate you all having me. I'm going to go accept my award now. So thank you so much. Have a good one.
Thanks, Mary. Congratulations. All right, so same question then to Cheryl and then to Scott about the challenges that you're seeing or hearing that are making it harder to address the pressing needs that you mentioned earlier. So sustainable funding certainly is coming up a lot, but what else are you seeing?
I certainly agree with Mary on the housing dilemma. This is not a behavioral health system problem. We are just trying to clean up the mess from unsustainable housing costs and vacancy, terrible vacancy rates. So anyway, but I wanted to start with a couple of things I'm really encouraged by, and then I'll go to the concerns. So first, I'm extremely encouraged by the building of the crisis stabilization centers across the state. This is where we can really help prevent people from entering the justice system or going to the hospital, if we can help them in the community, and help them get to the next steps for substance use treatment. That's a great place to start that progress, start that road. Along with the crisis stabilization centers, we're doing more in withdrawal management. So I'm seeing more growth there, and it's greatly needed. And then in addition, we're building up our residential treatment capacity in the communities. Of course, that takes a while. It takes quite a bit of time to site a facility and then get all the money together, because you never get all the money from one place. You have lots of different funding streams, again with the braiding of the funding. And then after you build it, you have to have funding to operate it. So I guess this comes with a challenge too, is that we could get funding for building these residential facilities, but we don't necessarily have the sustained operations for the facilities. I would say that's the case for crisis stabilization centers for sure too. But I do see this as encouraging. As many of you know, we are trying to, I don't know if the word is tackle or try to handle this growing dilemma of the state hospital capacity and filling up with forensic patients. And those are mostly people who are unable to aid and assist in their own defense. And this population has a significant portion of people who are both unhoused and have significant substance use disorders. And so building the facilities, the crisis stabilization centers, building more supported housing, those are all things that we need in the community to help people, to prevent them from entering the criminal justice system in the first place. So again, that's encouraging, and we need time to keep developing those settings in the community. My main concerns, the things that really keep me up at night, not just for substance use disorder prevention and treatment, but really for the whole public behavioral health system, is the looming threat of reduction in Medicaid funding through HR 1. And right now, currently, we are facing reductions in our contracts with CCOs. And this will impact substance use prevention treatment programs. It will impact an array of programs that affect people who have substance use disorder challenges. There's shelters that are going away. I mean, there are lots of programs that are in jeopardy that we count on in the public behavioral health system, where we're serving people with the highest acuity. I also know that with the well, what's the word to use? So SAMHSA is going through a massive restructuring. More than half of their staff, probably even more than half, it's probably this significant number of their staff have been fired. And so I know that even the not-for-profits, the CBOs across the state, are doing some really good substance use disorder prevention work, treatment work with youth. They've been completely defunded. They don't have SAMHSA funding anymore. So this is my biggest worry, really, is just the lack of federal support, the decreased federal support in the Medicaid space, and the public behavioral health system is entirely dependent on Medicaid. It's our biggest funder, as well as the defunding, and I would say tearing apart of SAMHSA. And what happens there, as you all know, is the state has to try to fill gaps, which means that the state general fund is also in jeopardy for the public behavioral health system. So we're facing reductions in state general fund as well. We don't have county general funds to back us up in most counties. There are a few counties who kick in funding for public behavioral health system services, but not many. So we don't have a whole lot of choices for funding to make up. We appreciate opioid settlement funds and also the burn funding, but it's not going to make up these terrible losses from federal and state reductions. I'll stop there.
Thanks, Cheryl. It's a lot to chew on. Scott?
I think one of the things that I think is a positive is that the conversation about whether or not we do jail diversion, about the importance of treatment, that's done even among my membership, law enforcement, city management, doesn't matter what part of the state you're from. I think the local city leaders, and even we've seen some polling on general public attitudes that behavioral health funding is a public safety issue. And so that we've crossed that bridge and there's not really a controversy as to how we should proceed is a good thing, because that can derail that conversation. But like Cheryl, the impact of HR 1 is of significant and high degree of concern for us. And I think there's this cruelty of circumstance right now where Oregon actually just updated its civil commitment statute, where we had an opportunity to vector people who were very difficult to serve towards treatment, and now we've been hit with HR 1 and those budget cuts. And I don't know how much benefit we're going to get from that long, arduous conversation where we actually updated our civil commitment statute. So that is that is a huge challenge. I also think that there's, as we go into the 26th session and then again in 27, where unless Congress rolls back the Medicaid cuts, we're going to have another round. That there may be a perception among the public and among the legislature that we dealt with this with 4002 and the subsequent funding bill, and we haven't. I mean, I think we're seeing some positive things from deflection, and that is a good thing in certain counties, and I think it's too soon to tell in others. And I think there's some places where we're going to need to adjust some programming, but we're seeing positive issues there. But the idea that going into the cuts in 26 and the subsequent cut in 27, we could be in a very serious, I mean, very dire situation if that's not reversed. I do think Congress is probably not going to let some of that stuff slide going into the election cycle, but you can't take that to the bank at this moment.
Thank you. So this is the last question from me, and so I think, and then we'll leave some time for the board members to ask questions. But what are your ideas about how best to partner with the board, the OSPTR board, to address those challenges and to meet those needs? You know, thinking about sustainable funding, thinking about funding in general, thinking about losing a whole network of current services that are being provided. How can the board coordinate better with local entities to address those issues? And Sarah, let's start with you.
Yeah, so I think, I've already made the plug for making the prevention dollars ongoing. I think that would make the biggest difference and a really immediate difference. The second thing is, taking up your advocacy hats and joining with the ADPC as they roll out their 5-year plan, which includes prevention, and trying to get the legislature to invest more in primary prevention. I know that is on our agenda, is to make sure that we're all singing from the same sheet of music, to get more money into that space. And then it could also be made a little bit easier by reducing the administrative burden on the funding provided by the board. If it could be rolled into the existing ADPEP reporting requirements, that would just make it, easier for the folks doing the work to spend more time doing the work and less time doing the reporting. Yeah, that's all I have. Cheryl, did you want to add to that?
I certainly support all your recommendations around prevention. For me, it would be helpful if the board has access to information that would show the statewide landscape as far, aggregate information of the uses for the opioid settlement funding, and any trends that you're seeing, so that perhaps we could also support partnerships regionally, and doing some innovative things, because I really just don't have a sense of what all is going on statewide. I mean, I only have from my own members' perspectives, but if you have any data like that, I'd love to see that, and definitely would like to partner with you on substance use prevention activities statewide.
Thank you. And yeah, Scott?
Yeah, I will support my friends Sarah and Cheryl on prevention funding, stable prevention funding. That's critical from our perspective. Yeah, the data question would be extremely helpful, and I don't know. I mean, I don't know how nimble the board can be, but if you see data coming out of you see a surge in a specific area, having an idea of how do you address if there are resources that could be directed towards that surge. So the Clatsop County situation, having a coordinated response there is something that I think would be interesting to explore.
Thank you. So I do have one last question, and then I'm going to hand it over to the board members. So, given that all of the issues that you all have addressed, what would you prioritize, or what would you recommend that the board prioritizes in thinking about how the settlement fund should be used? Fernando, you want to add to that
Yeah,
or
sorry.
modify?
Yeah, well, I wanted to like modify your question a little bit. I did hear you guys say that we're in a situation where sustainable funding is something that you need, especially with all the pressures coming from the federal government. However, this board doesn't have sustainable funding. We can only pretty much give one-time funding, and it's an ever-shrinking pool of money. So, given that context, how can we support your work? Because what I heard you say is that you really need something that we can't actually provide.
Yeah, I'll just throw in a comment. I think having the data, the information that maybe you have access to statewide would help us get creative or more creative and innovative in our local, counties, cities, regions, so that maybe we can figure out how to best use the limited funds. That's really all I've got.
Well, I have a slightly more controversial contribution. I mean, I would say you could invest in primary prevention more along the lines of how you invested in the tribes. You promised them a pretty sizable chunk of money that I assumed they could spread out over a period of time, and that would essentially equal sustainable funding for that elongated period of time. I think, that would be one route to ensure that, perhaps we could at least get through the next 3 or 4 years, with primary prevention, hopefully until we see a change at the federal level, and can regain some federal resources. So that's one idea. Yeah.
Scott, what are you thinking?
I'm not sure I have a great answer for that question, but I mean, I think taking a look at, the Gladstone program, what you can fund is innovation, and I mean, we have 241 cities, anybody over 10,000 had a direct appropriation. So I think people are trying a bunch of interesting things right now and looking at what works and helping them, I don't want to use the word experiment, but to innovate and to find what's going to respond using data would be helpful. But yeah, I don't know that I have a statewide response, just because the experience each one of my members is having is different.
I just
Thank
want to
you.
mention, I do like Sarah's suggestion, though, just to have, you can have sustainability funding for a long term, but even, let's say, 3 years would be helpful to know that you have a certain amount of money and you can really do something with it. So I like that idea.
Thanks, Cheryl. Thanks, Scott. All right, I'm going to open it up to the board. Rick, you were fast to have your hand up. So yeah, shoot.
Hey, so it's not so much a question, it's just we have a retreat next month. And really, I think it's a time for us in the board to rethink our strategy. The world looks a lot different now than it did a year ago. And, even though we have our funding is time limited, it may be useful to think about in this context, do you invest in some innovation, some supportive services that are that we can invest in for a period of time that is helpful. And so I think the discussion from the panelists is very helpful for us to think through as a group how we can strategize our funding strategy going forward. So I just want to thank everybody for that perspective.
Thanks, Rick. There wasn't a question in there though. Just some appreciation and context setting, which I think is useful, helping us bring this into the board retreat. Are there other questions from the panelists to the board members? Jen, this was essentially your idea, so I want to give you the opportunity to ask any questions that you might have.
Thank you. Well, I think Sarah brought up a really, or maybe it was Scott that brought up the point that we in our state have direct funding to those communities that have a 10,000 population or greater. The dilemma is that it's population based, and so for communities that I represent, particularly those the funding resources are really quite small. And I think each of those communities have the opportunity of aggregating their funding resources with their county funding. And I know in some of the communities, they're really trying to decide, do we save those dollars up for 5 years, which is where our limit is, before we have to spend them, and then do something, and then it's back to the lower funding again. So I think when we talk about sustainability, it is difficult for the counties to deal with all of their cities, especially those that are smaller, more suburban or rural locations. And yet I think those communities are really, they want to hold on to any dollars that they have. So it would be, I think, helpful to hear even from the panelists about how they might see those resources that we currently have available best being used. So I'd really appreciate hearing from that. And then just before they do that, one of the reasons that I think this was an important issue is that our board, in my time on the board, has been reacting to, as best we can, areas where we think there are the greatest needs, and with the kinds of resources that we have. We don't always hear from those individual communities that are smaller, that are not as regional, but still have that over 20-minute travel time. And we have citizens that are, I think, as Mary mentioned, in Clackamas County, the overdose rates are still increasing. So, and we don't have the resources. So I think that is one of the things that I hope, as we go into our retreat, that we have an opportunity to talk about, rather than just reacting to maybe some requests for regional, treatment centers or whatever. It's a big challenge.
Yeah. So yeah, I'll put that out to the panel, Joanne. So how do we best support these smaller communities who are currently getting very limited dollars? What does that look like from the panel's perspective?
Well, I have a quick question back, because I'm not really sure, to be honest, with economies of scale, that's really difficult. But I'm wondering, is there a very set formula to fund the counties, cities? I believe there is, right? So it's not like you can alter your formula. So that was what I was thinking. We're trying really hard in the behavioral health system and specifically with CMHPs to work with Oregon Health Authority on certain formulas for particular investments that really are able to reach those areas that need the funding the most for a particular investment. But I don't know that you can even do that. Is that right? With
Well,
your
Adria, you have your hand up.
Are you referring to the funds that go directly to the cities and counties, or are you referring to funds that get allocated by the board?
those that you have control over. Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
So you're okay, just so you're not referring to the direct allocations that cities and counties get from the settlements.
No, I suppose that would be a question, though. And I saw a lot of nodding heads. So probably there is a very rigid formula for the funds that go directly out to the counties and cities, right?
Correct,
But
yeah.
maybe not for your board. Is that right?
I believe,
Or is there?
no, that's correct. So the direct funds that cities and counties receive from the settlements, they receive because they are direct releasors of the companies. So it's a legal agreement entered into. The allocation percentages are filed with the judgment. So it really is set in stone. And also that the allocation percentages themselves were hammered out in a negotiated fashion, which at this point is pretty much written in blood. So um, that's not something that this board has control over. It's a legal agreement filed with the court. Was there another question I can address regarding that?
Well, I was just in terms of trying to meet the needs of small communities, it doesn't feel like you can do that. I mean, with this funding, then is what I understand with the opioid settlement funding.
Not with the direct funds.
It's just like population based.
Yes, population based essentially.
Yeah, I think this is Joanne. I think Cheryl, it speaks to the needs that the communities have, just simply because even though the direct funding is there, it sometimes may appear that that takes care of all of the local communities when in those smaller communities, the funding is just simply not very much money. Yeah. So that was why I was wondering, when you look at it from a statewide or overall for all of the cities in the state, how are you directing services, or where are the needs that you can see most directly for additional resources that this board might be able to fund?
And so for that, I would toss that over to Scott, since he represents cities. When we work on investment formulas, it's county specific, and I hear that and it's hard enough actually to get it right between urban counties and rural, remote counties. It's very difficult, but I think that it's even more difficult to look at funding towns that are less than 10,000 adequately or fairly. So I'm going to throw that over to Scott, because I bet he deals with that a lot.
So that's a tough one. A lot of those the smaller communities that are below the 10,000 population, and I think that covers most cities in Oregon, they're not operating police or fire services. Those are either county or district provided, because economy of scales, it doesn't make sense to have for a smaller community to have a fire service or a medical service there's not enough call volume. So how they would respond or be able to design a program without practitioners is a challenge. I think looking at them collectively by a county or by a region and what's going on in that region. And so if say in Gladstone they have the treatment follow-up professional who goes after someone receives an naloxone treatment, there's the follow-up care, which I understand that was actually something that we looked at when we were drafting 4002 as a something to add into the bill. Something along those lines where you can fund that even for a short duration to address we're in the ongoing crisis, the ongoing emergency that recognizes sort of I know I've talked about the differences in our communities, but sort of finding something that recognizes the similarities in the experience would be helpful. Um, it, it's it, it's a challenge for a lot of our smaller communities simply because they don't employ practitioners. They know they have a problem, um, but they're largely beholden on other parties to provide the health and the emergency response services. But looking at their regional and collective needs, or simply creating a standard that says we want this service available to people in Oregon, and then coordinating how we do that as an approach. I think it sounds like a fairly robust retreat topic for you.
Thanks, Scott. I want to, Adria, you've been very patient with your hand up, and I know you have a question that you want to ask the panel. And then I think we'll wrap the panel up so that we can have time for our public comment and our next steps. But if folks have other questions, if board members have other questions that they would like to direct to the panel, send those our way, and we can get those out. Adria?
Yeah, a couple of you mentioned that more access to data would be helpful. What kind of data would be the most helpful um, when you're talking about needing access to data? Is it what is being spent around the state in other localities, or is it more epidemiological in nature that you're envisioning?
Well, for me, it could be both, really. I think we've mentioned both, but also what are you funding in terms of programming, from on the continuum of prevention and treatment, and more specifics on what those programs entail, so we could possibly work together, at least on a regional basis, perhaps with the limited funding, is what I was thinking. And Scott may have more.
I think the timeliness of data would be really helpful, because I think if a lot of what's available is stale. Going back to 24, and our situation in overdoses has changed dramatically since then. I would also, if you can do a, a Venn of where a program's been instituted and or established, and if there's a way to track that impact, I think that would be phenomenally helpful, which I know is probably a significant undertaking, but if you're asking, that would be nice.
Thanks. Sarah?
I think there's an opportunity to combine what we've been talking about here. OHA would probably have to be the convener to bring folks together that are regionally close to each other and share data in terms epidemiologic epi data. I'll just go with that so I can say the word. So the folks can see the trends in their areas and can maybe pool their funds and work together toward common goals. I think that's one way to get money to stretch a bit further during times of scarcity. But it's not going to be a 6-month project or a 1-year project. It's still probably going to be several years in order to get the project moving and to see results. And so again, that sustained funding is needed, but I do think there's an opportunity for more collaboration and more use of data sharing across counties and cities.
All right. Well, thank you to our panel. Thank you to Mary, who's at her lovely honoree luncheon right now. And really appreciate all of you providing your perspectives and your wisdom and what you're seeing on the ground. I think, yeah, Carrie, I think I'll just do the transition because we're running a little short on time. Um, I'm gonna turn it over to Zach to show us a little bit about what we're thinking about in terms of retreat planning.
Thank you, Jenny, and thank you, everyone. Yeah, we're a little short on time, but I think that discussion is really important and will help inform the retreat discussion. So glad we were able to make some time for that today. I just briefly wanted to share a proposed agenda for our retreat in January. And we'll have not much time for feedback right now, but we do have those one-on-ones scheduled. We'll be able to talk through these items there, and we're always open to feedback via email or scheduling meetings with us if you have any further comments. And we'll also be working with your co-chairs on this agenda too. So for the morning session of the retreat, we're thinking after some breakfast and mingling time, getting into a more retrospective session, really trying to pull out lessons learned, what we liked about our past allocation process, and what we want to continue over into this biennium. So that will look like a module celebrating board accomplishments and looking at how well we accomplished our objectives and stuck with our values and guiding principles. We'll get into some lessons learned that'll both be from OHA on sort of board administration, taking some of the results from Comagin's survey and digesting those, and then asking you all as board members what lessons you've learned through this process so far. And then getting a financial update from Tammy, just so we're all on the same page about where we're at dollar-wise and how we want to consider that as we make decisions about the future. We'll then have a good hour-long lunch break with social activity, really have that time for mingling and getting to know your fellow board members that you all identified as an important part of this retreat. And then the afternoon will be focused on that future-looking aspect, really looking into what do we want our priorities to be for the future. Obviously, we don't have a ton of time during this retreat, but this is really about setting the stage for the decision-making process, identifying how we want that process to look and what you want to prioritize as we move forward. So with that, we envision some small group conversations, building up to a larger report out, and sort of identifying best ideas that come out of each small group. From there, we will wrap up talking about what we want our next few meetings to look like, how we want to get into that decision-making process based off the conversations that we had, and then moving forward with next steps. So that is the very high-level brief overview of the retreat agenda. As I said, we'll talk about this in our one-on-ones. If you all have any ideas or concerns or questions, please feel free to reach out, and we're happy to modify this as we go forward. This is definitely a draft at this point. Are there any immediate questions or concerns that I can answer? April?
I'm sorry if I missed how much time we have for this agenda item, but and I'm glad we're going to follow up in one-on-ones, which I think I finally got scheduled this week. So thank you for being persistent and reaching out to me on that. But I'll say, I'm a little concerned that the whole day looks like pretty equally distributed between a look at what we've done and where we want to go. Like both blocks of time are pretty consistent, are pretty much the same. I think a lot of us know where we've been, and I think if we can condense that on the front end and maybe talk a little bit more about what we've raised a few times in this space around presenting on strategies other settlement boards, other states are using at this time. If we can if our settlement board staff can do a little research across other states or connection with other state partners to present what are some innovative things they're doing or how our other states are changing their strategies at this time. I think that could be really useful as sort of as teeing up the conversation for where we want to go. I appreciate today's conversation and the work that went into bringing these folks in from their perspectives to share sort of what's happening on the ground, the state and CMHP levels, county levels, and city levels. And I think that those are really important in terms of, one of the suggestions that Sarah just threw out at the end around having OHA convene folks regionally on a unified SUD strategy feels like something we should be thinking about. But if we're narrowing our scope to what we've got here on the settlement board funding, let's talk to some of our other state partners and be able to present on what other states are doing and to consider some ideas. I'd say a little less time on the on what we've done and more on the strategy.
Okay, thank you so much for that feedback. And yeah, we can talk more in the one-on-one, but I like those suggestions. We do need to get to our public comment period, so I'm going to turn it back to Carrie. And again, please reach out with any further feedback, and we'll share the slide deck so you can look through it as well. Carrie?
Yeah, great. Thank you. I definitely appreciate everything that we've talked about today. I'm looking forward to the retreat, but we do have some public comment today. So I'd just like to start by saying the Opioid Settlement Prevention, Treatment, and Recovery Board welcomes and appreciates public testimony. We will do our best to not interject during public testimony. We will, however, bring it fully into our awareness, understanding it as an important consideration for our work, and listen with careful attention and respect. We want to acknowledge that time held in our meetings to hear public testimony is meant to provide a voice and perspective from that individual and is not a representation of the Opioid Settlement, Prevention, Treatment, and Recovery Board, its members, or the Oregon Health Authority. Each presenter is given 2 minutes to share, and if that doesn't feel like enough time, we encourage you to provide written testimony to share with the board. To help keep us on time, we'll start a 2-minute timer for each commenter. We kindly ask that commenters conclude their presentation when the timer is complete. If your public testimony includes questions for the board, co-chairs, or OHA, please provide your contact information so that we can respond following via email. So, we do have 2 public comments today, and the first person is Debbie Jones.
Yes, thank you so much. My name is Debbie Jones. I'm a prevention specialist in Wasco County. I also serve as the chair of the ADPC's Primary Prevention Subcommittee. And I think I've had the chance to do this with this board, but I want to again thank this board for seeing the value of primary prevention. You don't just talk about it in your meetings, but you showed that in your initial decision making where you put an equal allocation of funds towards that. We are doing some really incredible things with those dollars. I know you mentioned some smaller communities that don't necessarily receive, the ones that are under that 10,000. That's one of the things that we've done through the allocation that you've helped us receive, is to make sure that we can help have that primary prevention workforce be certified in evidence-based practices, so the work that we are doing has that evidence behind it. I've received calls from other state leaders who have said, wow, we saw what your settlement board did in Oregon. How did that happen? So it is something that I can say that we can be really proud of here in Oregon because of the efforts that you have taken. And I just want to express my appreciation for that. And then with the panel discussion, again, I think it's always really important for us to, when we use the word prevention, what are we preventing? There's times where it's like, that diving into primary prevention and harm reduction. And when we single them out, they can work real well, and then they support each other. So I think this board really gets that, and I'm so appreciative of the time you spent in leading our state, and just wanted to make sure I provided that. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Debbie. Our next public comment is from David Berglund. Is David here? If you're speaking.
Yeah. David, you appear to be here. Are you having trouble getting off of mute?
Yes, I see your hand raised.
Okay, I am off mute. Can I have video or not?
I mean, you can if you want. Yeah.
It's telling me that the host has stopped it.
Well, why don't you just go ahead and, unless you, yeah, why don't you
Oh,
just go
there we
ahead
go.
and, okay.
Okay. All right. My name is Dave Berglund. I oversee the opioid settlement funds for Jackson County. In my role as project coordinator and business analyst, I've had the privilege of helping to maximize the value of these dollars to my community and the communities surrounding mine, especially through MOUD and peer support. I have a recommendation. Although every participating entity in our state has been warned repeatedly that settlement funds need to be spent within 5 years, several have not made significant use of their opioid settlement funds. It is my understanding that if these funds are clawed back, the Opioid Settlement Prevention, Treatment, and Recovery Board, the group I am addressing, will be the ones who will decide what is to be done with that money. My recommendation is for those unused dollars, if you do get them, to be reserved in a local jurisdiction sustainability fund meant to provide longevity for existing opioid reduction programs that have been piloted by local jurisdictions. Any participating local jurisdiction would be able to apply for program sustainability funds to help allow the programs they have launched to continue through times of uncertain financial support. This would be especially useful for programs that rely on braided funding, as some funding streams are going away or have been threatened. A local jurisdiction sustainability fund would also be more in keeping with the spirit of the settlement decision to have 55% of the opioid settlement funds go to local government rather than having those wayward resources be taken for use by the state. To sum up, in a perfect world, no funds would be clawed back, but if some are, I recommend they be reserved in a local jurisdiction sustainability fund to maintain proven programs launched by local governments, particularly in treatment hubs that serve the surrounding communities. Thank you for considering my recommendation. 2 minutes, right? Yeah.
Thank you so much. All right, so I think Jenny, I'm gonna pass it back to you to do the
Next steps.
Yep, yeah.
Okay, so you all know we've been reaching out to you to have short one-on-one conversations. They're going great. Thank you to everybody who's gotten these on their schedule. If you have not yet scheduled a one-on-one with one of us, then please look for that email from me. I think I sent reminders out on Monday. I'm happy to resend reminders out to anyone who hasn't been able to see that yet. Erin mentioned that continuous improvement survey that Alexis Cook presented on last month. If you've not had a chance to fill that survey out, go ahead and take a few minutes to do that this week. That will also help us as we continue our planning work. And finally, we're getting the retreat plan finalized over the next couple of weeks before the end of the year. So just be on the lookout for a meeting packet with some important background information about a week or so before the retreat. And again, thank you, April, for your feedback on the overarching plan for the retreat. We're definitely going to take that into consideration. And if folks have feedback that they would like to give during their one-on-ones, please use that time to do that. So that's it. Turn it back to you, Carrie.
All right, well, I am really grateful, as always, for the opportunity to connect with you all. Such great information today. And I'm, as I said before, really excited to dig deeper in January when we come together. So I think that that's it for this meeting. I think we can wrap it up. And I guess we'll see you in January. Take care, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.